Okay, we have the rain, we have a cup of tea, muffins, books, and a blanket. So I think it's pretty much the ultimate bookish, autumnish vibe. And I'm here for it. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Iris. I'm from Barcelona and I'm 30 years old. I just turned 30 and I've only started this YouTube channel. So first of all, I wanted to say once again, thank you so much for all of you who have subscribed to my channel and have been supporting my first videos, because I'm in awe and I'm so excited to be starting this project and to be sharing this journey with you. In this channel, we mainly talk about books, about cozy lifestyle, and my own writing journey, as I'm beginning to write my first book ever after so many years of wanting to make this dream come true. So today I wanted to take this video a little bit different. I woke up this morning, it was so rainy, so cozy, so I was craving some banana bread muffins, and that's what I did. And I wanted to share the process with you and just sit down with muffins, a cup of tea, and so many autumnish and fall vibes books. Today I wanted to share with you some of my autumn book recommendations, and also I'm gonna quickly share my fall TBR. I don't want to repeat the books that I shared with you on my first bookish video. In there, I already shared some of my TBR for the rest of the year, but I had a couple of books that I saved for this video because I thought they would be much more autumnal. So yeah, I'm gonna start with that. I'm gonna start sharing with you my quick fall TBR, which again, it's completed by the books that I shared in the other video. And then I'm gonna share with you all of my fall recommendations. I'm gonna start by sharing the two books that I'm currently reading. One of them, I wouldn't say it's like the ultimate fall read, but I think it also has cozy autumn vibes. It's Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I actually read the second part of this book a couple of years ago, thinking that it was the first part. I didn't know there was already like 3 installments and all of them have the same title in the cover. So I just saw one of them in the bookstore and I thought it was the first and only part. So I've already read the second part and now I'm reading the first one. I've heard the first one is actually a bit better, so I already like the second part. I think I'm gonna really enjoy this first one. I'm pretty sure most of you already know about this book. It's a collection of short stories and all of them happen in the same coffee shop. It's a special coffee shop where I think I don't remember if it was just one table or a special kind of coffee. I'm not fully remembering. Yeah, it says this coffee shop offers its customers a unique experience, the chance to travel back in time. But the journey into the past does not come without risk. Customers must sit in a particular seat, they cannot leave the cafe, and finally they must return to the present before the coffee gets cold. So yeah, they can travel back to the past and usually they go in order to be able to talk to people that are no longer here, or at least that's how it was in the second part. So I'm really excited to dive into the stories in this book, and it's such a cozy and easy read for when you are not sure what mood you're in. So that's what I'm using this book for. And then the second book that I'm reading is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have been meaning to read this book for such a long time. I know it's a classic, I know it's many people's favorite, but I don't know why it took me so long. I'm so happy that it's quite a short read because I'm kind of getting out of a reading slump, so it's serving me so well right now. I started reading it a couple of nights ago, and as I was reading the first chapter, I was like, yes, I'm gonna really enjoy this one. I was hooked. I was so interested by the whole thing, by the writing. It was beautiful writing. So I think I'm gonna really enjoy it. Then please, let's take a moment to appreciate this, because when this happens, when the same colors, especially when they are whites, blacks, they fit into the season. There's two types of moods for autumn, I feel like. One of them would be more like the brown, cozy, just relaxed vibe, and the other one is more like the black, dark, more like horror vibes. Yeah, just darker vibes. So I love both of them, but sadly I don't think I have the brown palette here, so I'm just gonna enjoy the black one. Anyways, the next book in my TBR is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. I know I'm a bit late to the game, but since all I've heard from this book was that it was pretty slow and that it had not much of a plot, and I usually like books with heavy plots, or at least that's the feeling that I have. That's why I put it off. But last year I was in London and I found this beautiful edition of this book. I don't know if you can see, I'm gonna try to record close-ups of the books, but this one in particular is so beautiful. It's an illustrated anniversary edition. I don't usually buy special editions, but this time, since I was in London and it was just so beautiful, I decided to go for it, and I'm so glad I did. Next one in the list is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I have a feeling that I'm really gonna enjoy this one. So far, I think I've enjoyed all of Leigh Bardugo's books, so it would be weird for me not to enjoy this one. And if it's anything like the cover and the vibes that this book is giving, I think I'm really gonna enjoy it. Last one on the list, I have If We Were Villains. Again, late to the game. As I mentioned in my previous bookish video, I have not read, I think, any dark academia book, except of, like, I don't know if one that I'm gonna show, I don't know if that one is dark academia, it could be, but if not, I have not read any classical dark academia books. So this year I wanna start reading some of them. In the other video, I shared The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and this one is also on my TBR for the rest of the year. So yeah, these are all the books in my fall TBR. I think I'm just so excited to read them all. And now I'm gonna start with my recommendations for fall. I don't have any particular order or categories. These are just books that give me fall vibes, either by the themes that they have, if they are a bit more dark or cozy, or I don't know, I just envision myself reading them during the fall season. I'm gonna start with these 3 books because I was so surprised and also excited to see that so many of you requested me to suggest other books in Spanish in my future videos, either if they had translation to English or if they were only in Spanish, but I found them to be a bit easier to read. So I decided to share 3 books that I read in Spanish. I think one of them for sure has translation to English, and then the other 2, I'm pretty sure they have not, but they are, one of them is easier and the other one is a bit more complicated, but if any of you are interested, then you can maybe give it a try. The first one, I think I briefly mentioned in my other video, it's Marina by Carlos Ruiz. It's so weird to switch between languages. I was struggling to say the name of the author, Carlos Ruiz Zafón. There we go. Anyways, this was my first book by this author. I'm planning to start reading The Shadow of the Wind, La Sombra del Viento, which is, I would say, his most famous work. But I started by this one. I would say this is more juvenile. It's not an adult book, but I think it was a good introduction to his work. And this is the ultimate fall read. It has it all. It has the dark vibes, the mysterious vibes, the weird old sort of, you don't know if it's enchanted house. It has it all, truly. One of the things that I was the most surprised by his work in general is the way he writes. It's so different, so atmospheric. He has this unique way of writing the sentences in a way that you can already tell what's the mood of the whole book in like the first line or the first chapter. I found it so captivating to read. Without giving too much of the plot, because I think it's so interesting to just discover while you're reading the book. It's set in Barcelona in the 1980s, and the protagonist is Oscar. The protagonist is Oscar, and while he's discovering and exploring the streets of Barcelona, which I loved because I'm obsessed with Barcelona. I live so close to Barcelona. I've actually lived in the city for a couple of years, and I'm just in love with the city. If you have a chance to visit it, you should, because I don't know, it's one of my favorite cities and it's just so close to where I live. But yeah, I loved how he describes the city and the different buildings. I was so in awe and I was just rediscovering the city. So while the protagonist is doing that, he meets this girl called Marina. They start this adventure, these risky adventures actually, where they try to figure out a mystery. I'm not gonna say anything else. You know, it's one of those books where you're not sure until the end if it has like magical or paranormal things in it, if they are for real happening, or if it's something else that the characters just haven't made sense of yet. The next one I'm gonna briefly mention because I'm pretty sure this doesn't have Spanish translation, so only those of you who know how to understand Spanish will be able to read it. It's She's Sane. I'm not sure how to pronounce. Y la ciudad donde ya no sale el sol by Gemma Badillo. It's such a creepy book. It's again one of those books where you don't know what the hell is going on until the very end. Maybe some of you would be able to see the plot twist. I'm hardly ever able to see the plot twist coming, so I really enjoyed this book. I actually know the author and she's a really sweet girl, and I know how much work she put into this book, and I absolutely enjoyed it. It's one of those weird stories that I just want to be in them, you know, and try to figure out what the hell is going on. I wish some of these books were translated to English so more people could enjoy them. Maybe someday it will happen. I think it might have happened, or it will happen with this one, because I know this author writes in Spanish. She's a Spanish author, but she has been recently translated to English. So I was so excited to see that. It's not that usual that it happens unless a Spanish author goes like extremely huge. They are not usually translated to English, but she was able to make it happen and I got so excited for her. This one is El día que dejó de nevar en Alaska. I read this, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago, so many years ago. It's a romance book. I don't usually read romance books, but back then I used to, and this one was one of my favorites. It's set in Alaska, so it obviously has this cold, cozy vibes that you would want to read in autumn or in winter, so I would really recommend. I'm gonna make sure to check which of her books are translated in English, and I'm gonna put it in the screen so you can check it out. Okay, so with those Spanish books out of the way, I'm gonna start with some of the books that you have probably heard of, even though this one in particular, I haven't seen many people talk about it in recent years, and I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely a fall read. So it's This Savage Song by B.E. Schwab. B.E. Schwab has started to become one of my favorite authors. In general, I really enjoy her writing, her stories, her mind, what she's able to create. Kate Harker wants to be as ruthless as her father. After 5 years and 6 boarding schools, she's finally going home to prove that she can be. August Flynn wants to be a human, but he isn't. He's a monster, one that can steal souls with a song. He's one of the 3 most powerful monsters in a city overrun with them. His own father's secret weapon. Their city is divided, their city is crumbling. Kate and August are the only 2 who see both sides, the only 2 who could do something. But how do you decide to be a hero or a villain when it's hard to tell which is which? This was such a dark book, and at the same time I found myself connecting so much and rooting so much for August, who is the monster of this book. I like how Victoria Schwab has this similar way of playing with the monster concept. They don't have anything to do with one another, but I found this exploration of the word monster and the meaning of what's a monster or who's a monster similar to Frankenstein. Like, you're doubting all the time who's really the monster in the story or who is really the villain in the story, even though they are really morally great characters and like monsters are still monsters. So yeah, really dark book. It's a duology, so it has a second part. I really enjoyed both of them. The next recommendation that I have, it's another Leigh Bardugo book, and it's The Familiar. This, I would say, it's a really autumnish book, again, mostly because of the dark vibes that it has. I have read some reviews about this book and I have heard many people talk about it on BookTube, and I think I'm one of the only few that has really enjoyed this book. I read it in the summer. It took me out of such a big reading slump. I was hooked the whole time, like I really enjoyed it. And again, I think it's mainly because I'm more of a plot girl. As I always say, characters are really important. If you don't have good characters, the book is not gonna work. But I notice the plot more and I find it more interesting. So what other people really like about Leigh Bardugo's books is the characters, the connections between the characters, the depth in the characters in her books. And maybe if you go into this book thinking that it's gonna be like her other books and that the characters and the relationships between the characters are gonna be as strong as in some of her other books, you're probably gonna be disappointed by this book. But for me, it really worked. I wouldn't say it was my favorite book by her, but it was close to it. And it was definitely the one that had me more hooked. Like I couldn't put this book down. And I think I read it in like 3 days, even though it's quite long. Plus the setting was so interesting. It's set in Spain during the Inquisition time. So it was so dark. The themes were so dark. Everything that happened in the society in that moment was gray and just dark in general. I have to find more words to describe this, but yeah, just, you know what I mean. And the protagonist is Lucia Cotado. They are in Madrid and Lucia is a scullion in a house, and she, like the mistress of the house, discovers that Lucia has some sort of powers, and she starts demanding Lucia to use those powers to win the royal court and to start gaining more of a reputation, make some new relationships that could be important for the mistress and for the house. There is one moment in particular in this book that I think I've also heard many people talk about, that it's forever imprinted in my brain. It was such a oh wow, what just happened moment that, yeah, it gets stuck inside your head in a good and in a bad way. Very quickly, I want to recommend this book again. I know I said it in my last video, but I wanted to say it in this one as well, in case you haven't and you won't watch the other one, because I think this is such a cozy fall book, but for other reasons, more mainly for the cozy vibes and not for the dark vibes. This is not dark at all. It's the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I'm not gonna go very much into it because I know it's already quite a popular book, but I found this book so charming. It's one of those books where you can feel like nothing is gonna be too serious or nothing is gonna break your heart too much. You can just chill and enjoy the ride. If I have to make a comparison to the same feeling with a TV show, I would say it's sort of like Gilmore Girls, which I recently started watching as well. It's one of those shows where you just can chill and watch it and you know nothing is gonna be too serious. It's not gonna give you sleepless nights or make you think about it too much. It's just enchanting. Similar vibes to the previous one is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I recently finished reading this book. I shared it in my last blog and I quite liked it. It took me, I don't know, maybe not half of the book, but 1/3 of the book to get into it, to start understanding the characters and really falling into the plot and the story and all of that. But as I continued reading, I started liking it more and more, and by the end I was hooked and I wanted to know more about the characters and maybe read the second book. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite books. Like this one was, I think it was a 5-star for me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was everything that I needed in this moment. This one was more like a 4.25, more like a 4-star book. If this is a 2 out of 10 in darkness, this would be 3.5, 4. It definitely has quite a few darker elements, but yeah, it's overall a cozy book and nothing is gonna be too serious. Emily Wilde is a genius scholar. She's actually developing her encyclopedia of fairies. So she visits, where is it? A village of Hravsnvik. I think it was, I don't know, in Norway or like somewhere really, really cold. Anyways, she goes there. It's a small village. She's not really good at talking and making friendships and relationships. So her time being there, being alone, being misunderstood by the people in this small village at the beginning is quite slow and hard for her. So she mainly tries to focus on her work and developing her encyclopedia. But things start to change a little bit when Wendell Bumbly, which is, I don't know, it says here it's her rival. I never felt it as a rival. More in the beginning, I just felt it as an annoying character appearing when Emily just wanted to be alone and be doing her thing. But this guy decides to just go to the same little house that Emily is living during this winter and help her develop her encyclopedia of fairies. Things start to take a turn from here and you start discovering new things about these characters. So yeah, if you are looking for something similar to this book, I would say they are in the same category of cozy books. Last but not least, the one book that I said before, I'm not sure if this is Dark Academia, is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. This is the first book that I have read by the author, and since I finished it, I want to read more books. Again, this is one of those books that you see in Goodreads that they are either a hit or miss. It has sort of like a 3.5 stars in Goodreads, and a lot of people really didn't like this book, and there are some people where they loved this book. For me, it was definitely like a either a 4.25 or 4.5 stars out of 5 stars. So it was a really good book for me. Again, it had me hooked. I really loved the atmosphere, the vibes, the characters, the darkness in all of it. And it's definitely one of those books that I wish I read during autumn. This one definitely has a few trigger warnings. So I would say if you're worried about that, I would check those trigger warnings first. I'm gonna quickly read what it says here in the back because I think my neurons are already starting to fry, and when you're not speaking your own language and you're already tired, you start mumbling and saying nonsense. So we're gonna trust what it says here. Effie has always believed in fairy tales. She's had no choice. Since childhood, she's been haunted by visions of the Fairy King and found solace in the pages of Angrad, Emrys Myrddin's beloved epic about a mortal girl who falls in love with the Fairy King and then destroys him. By the way, this part of the book was so interesting, and that's why many people say that this book is a love letter to stories and to storytelling and books. And I found that part of the book really interesting, and I found myself really falling in love with the two main characters and their love for stories and books, since I also love books. So that was a very easy to connect point with the characters. Skipping a bit, it says, so when the late author's family announces a contest to redesign his house, Effie feels certain this is her destiny. So basically, Effie is a college student, an architecture college student, mainly because girls and women in this like world building cannot study anything related to literature. So she's forced to choose the architecture route, even though she really doesn't like it and she's not passionate about it. But in any case, it's a good opportunity for her to participate in this contest and redesign the house of one of her, like her favorite author, and the author of one of the books that has helped her during all her life to feel more understood, to feel like she belongs, or she's a little bit less weird. So yeah, it has strong topics. It talks a lot about mental health, about sexual assault. It also has this really strong message about feminism and the figure of women in literature, and in general different injustices that happen in the world. And maybe not in the same way now, but in the same way in the past, and also in different ways in the present, where women cannot do certain things, or women are not thought to be as capable as men in some areas or some aspects of life or of studies. So yeah, strong themes, strong trigger warnings, and really dark vibes, a really atmospheric book. I really liked it. I really recommend it to you guys, but once again, not for everyone. Whew, that was a lot of books. I'm gonna finish this video right now so I can finish eating my muffin, finish my cup of tea, and have a cozy time. I'm probably gonna continue reading The Picture of Dorian Gray. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can take some recommendations from here and maybe add it to your TBR. As always, I would love to read your recommendations, your fall recommendations in the comments. It's always so nice to keep adding books to my TBR. I actually added a few by reading your comments in my last video. So please let me know what are your favorite books to read during this season, or maybe what books do you have in your TBR? Once again, thank you so much for all of your support, for being here. I still feel a little bit weird and getting used to speaking in English while I'm recording. As you can tell, I still struggle a lot, especially when I've been talking for a long time. I know many of you said in the comments that you don't mind my accent, but I still feel so insecure about it. And I just hope you can understand what I'm saying and it's not like a difficulty in the videos. But yeah, I'm gonna try to keep improving this part. Anyways, I'm mumbling now. Thank you so much for being here, for all of your continued support. And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe consider doing so. It would make me so happy and it helps this channel a lot. So yeah, I hope you have a fantastic day, a fantastic week, and I will see you very soon in my next video.